Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new setup. This is not, to be very clear, the eventual studio. Maybe. Might be the eventual studio, might not. No idea. I'm not actually in a closet. In fact, I've got a nice big roomy space to work with now. It's great, and I love how nice and open it feels. I've got a fan right over there, which actually blows partially on the computer, partially on myself, and then also redirects air that way, because I already thought about the aerodynamics of that. I've got another fan there for emergency situations in case it gets particularly hot. Obviously, I've got the monitor right here, computer right over there. I've got the mic right there. I've already done some audio tests. I know it sounds good. I know you're like, that doesn't sound any different to me, but no, I've got the ear for it. I have done some audio tests. It sounds very, very good. The green screen is dead and gone and never coming back. What you're seeing behind me is just a little bit of a temp setup, because this is not my studio. Maybe. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. But Zeiss decided to interrupt me, because he's Zeiss. And look, I'm good for it, Zeiss. Just give me five more weeks, okay? 5 more weeks, I'll get you your gold, I swear. But either way, thank you very, very much for the sub. I will jot that down for stuff, which I don't even have that thing up because I wasn't expecting donations today. Give me a minute here. It's going, Forbidden West, and as a reminder, Zeiss, we have the plural system, which means you can put it up to 3 things with no additional cost if you would like to. But yeah, this is a little bit of a live test, and a little bit of a tech test. Like I said, I know the audio sounds good. The audio sounds so much better. I know nobody cares. No, Pika. I know nobody cares except for me. But I absolutely hated the audio setup of the previous room. It sounded bad to me. It sounded bad on the VODs. And it was terrible. So that is... that sucks. But we're in a new place. Much, much better audio quality here. I'm probably going to do something different here. A friend of mine, so I was talking about it to a friend of mine, and when I was originally doing the layout, this was just last night, and originally this wall was barren, and I was like, well, I don't want just a barren wall right now, right? That's awful. And so she came up with the idea, why don't you just put the in progress stuff? Because all of these things here, it's probably not super obvious, but this is actually all set stuff. Like this is my cartridge games, this is my extra miscellaneous hardware stuff. Over here on the right, you've got, you know, the models I'll eventually build, stuff from my niece. This is actually not set stuff. This is emergency stuff. This is set stuff. That's set stuff. It's all set stuff. So it looks in progress. The theory here is that someone who pops in and sees a blank wall will think, oh, what an amateur stream setup. But someone who sees an in progress setup will think, aha, they're in the middle of doing something. And they'll just kind of automatically assume that rather than judge me for it. That's the idea behind that. And plus, now I can have dive right here. So I think that's just a win-win. Anyways, let me go ahead and jot this down for Horizon Forbidden West and also Phantom Liberty. What the heck is Phantom Liberty? So, eventually, I don't think... Oh, Cyberpunk. Right, Cyberpunk. You can tell I'm up on my news. Eventually, I'm either going to be here or about 20 feet that way. Either way, I'm now down on ground floor in the basement, as it should be. I am in the cave. But no, it's actually a really good thing, especially right now, because it's nice and cool down here. It's a basement. And the AC down here works a lot better. And let me tell you, just going straight up and down between the 3rd story and down here, night and day in terms of temperature. It's bonkers. So much more comfortable as well, which means I can also start wearing my uniform again, which is great. So that's the big reason for the immediacy of the move. The biggest problem, the biggest thing that had been preventing me from moving was the fact that the basement, this room right here, the finished half of the basement, was not ready for anything to be moved into it. But I spent my mornings before stream and my evenings before bed bit by bit working through that, throwing stuff away, sorting things, getting everything collated, and making sure it was all sorted. And once it all was, I found out I had a huge amount of additional space to work with. Like, huge. Like, I've still got tons of empty space there, which, again, is awesome. Obviously, the unfinished basement is still unfinished. I don't know if I'm going to end up here or there. Both of them are options. Obviously, I'm going to have to do some audio tests, primarily, in order to figure that out. But the thing is, that room over there is waiting on people who are not me, which means it's waiting an indeterminate period of time before it's done. This is now. And like I said, I did this last night and this morning. That was the majority of my evening and morning, excuse me, was getting this set up. I'm probably thinking, well, why are you only streaming at like 3 in the afternoon? Well, then my sister was like, "Oh, great, you've left the upstairs room. Can you move my computer into there?" Sure, sis. Let me go ahead and do that. She was nicer about it than that, but I just decided to just get that out of the way since I was already moving stuff, right? Why not? Anyways, so that's the immediacy. That's where we're at right now. This is the temp setup. Part of the reasoning, though, I've actually said this out loud before. I didn't want to stream major games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Dragon Age Origins or GTA 5 in that thing. I didn't want to have the bad audio. I didn't want to have the casual shirt. I didn't want to have the heat problem. I wanted to be able to actually stream, you know, a little bit more professionally. Still not there. We're still not done. But I wanted to have a more high-quality stream for games that are that big and are that relevant, right? So that's honestly the biggest piece of motivator, if I'm just being very, very blunt. It's also why we're doing this now instead of like about last week, because I probably could have pulled this off last week. Maybe. GTA 5 is pre-Oblivion line, I see, so... anyways, obviously we also have a slightly different lighting setup. Most of you who actually were there for the phone streams, which are not VODed, are aware of that. So we've got really nice, big, bright fluorescent lights over here. I actually like them. I like fluorescent lights, always have. So I don't even have to worry about my lighting setup because the lighting is great. Like, look at this. This is fantastic. I've got no worries as far as having tons and tons of light for the camera. For those of you not aware, lighting is literally 50% of getting a camera to look good. So I like that that's just a solved issue. Fun fact, though. So those lights are on a separate breaker from everything else down here. So if something bad happens, like if that breaker goes out, then we will lose the lighting and nothing else. Anyways, so that's where we're at. That's the immediacy, that's the move, yada, yada, yada. Now, some of you are aware of the fact that we have a Q&A bot, and that is, of course, something that I currently have, hang on, 65 pages of queued questions. Now, not all of these are valid questions, obviously, because, you know, a whole lot of these I answered as they were coming in, but I figured since we were in the middle of this pause anyways, this would be a good time to go ahead and push through the queue. So we're going to start all the way back up here with these questions from April. Really? Okay, yeah, no. That's true, ISC, that's true. Although, I am on a UPS for the computer, so I'm not super worried about that. And everything's on the UPS this time. That's the last time. Here we go. Oh yeah, by the way, real quick, before I forget. Some of you who were there at, all 3 of you who were there at the end of the Shantae block knows that I like to keep track of franchise scores, essentially just for fun. Did you know that you can access that by simply typing !franchise into chat, and you'll see a link to it. Obviously, not all of them are filled out yet, but those sheets are pretty much ready to go with regards to getting those eventually. Right now, the only ones that are actually filled out are Mega Man and Shantae. But eventually, I guess technically Mass Effect is in there as well. Oh, actually, I think, now that I'm saying that out loud, I think that Halo is there as well, now that I'm saying that. I will add it to the site at some point, it's not there yet. What's the difference, Ice? Probably the original. I don't see the reason to buy it again. So, like, for example, I can look at Mass Effect right now and say that the average golden number for Mass Effect was 120.33. So that's the score of the franchise, or at least it would be if not for the fact that we haven't reviewed Mass Effect Andromeda. Either way, it is funny to look at the story and gameplay axis of Mass Effect, because I track that, and it's like, story, yeah. But the funny part is actually the gameplay, which starts bad, and then goes better, and then goes better. And I actually have a feeling that Andromeda will push it up even higher. But anyways, that's off topic. Questions. So, let's go through the queue. I might skip over some of these. I might repeat some of these. Whatever. Considering that Star Trek Picard... sorry, I should mention who's asking these. Not Zero asks, considering that Star Trek Picard is on the Forbidden List, did you hear that Season 3 seems to not be crap? Yes, I have heard that, even though I'm not entirely certain I agree. But obviously I have not seen it to give a full review. Either way, regardless of whether or not we cover it, is going to be up to people who are not me. Jordan says, when you do the Dragon Age block, in a couple of weeks here, are you giving continuity issues between Awakening and 2, specifically involving Anders and being in 2 different places at once? I don't actually know what that's referencing specifically, but the answer is yes. We will, as we always do, measure continuity between games, especially when it's a linear franchise like Dragon Age 1, 2, 3. Novarius asks, do you think we'll have another Golden Age of gaming? I feel like I answered that one, but to be very honest about that, I'm pretty sure we're already in another Golden Age of gaming, like now. We might actually be on the tail end of a Golden Age of gaming, to be very, very blunt. Tim asks, Monkey Paws Wish. Let's keep it to games, but would you... Wait, what? Oh, sorry, hang on, that's actually the second part of it. Yeah, we've had a lot of awesome games lately, and a lot of them are in the indie space, a lot of them in the AA space. And who cares about AAA games? Yeah, exactly, Kira. I mean, honestly, it really is kind of its own separate animal at this point. Hang on, scroll down. So Tim asks, if Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was still a thing, playable and streamable, would you veto it off the list? So that's not an automatic no like you'd think it would be. And the reason why is because the completionist, the reviewer in me, the analyst in me, would kind of like to establish the floor. Because there is no game worse than Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. So that probably would be the floor. That would establish as far down as negatives can go. I'd have to think about it. Time would as always be the opponent of that. Go get your food, Dice. Good evening, Vancini. Hello, Saber for Wife. Oh, there's plenty, Mike Romano, including mine, by the way. I highly recommend you go watch it. It's been a lot of research making sure that I can give you a full detail of exactly how absolutely goddamn terrible the worst game ever made is. Apart from... So this is from Jay Palmer. Apart from Neelix, is there a character you detest in Voyager? I'm going to stick with main characters, because obviously there's lots of side characters that are just irritating and frustrating in that show. So, just amongst the main cast... Nah, I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with no. Also, I don't dislike Neelix while we're on the subject. He is irritating from time to time, but literally all of them are. Noctis asks, favorite unique weakness for any faction in an RTS? The Norse in Age of Mythology, who have to fight in order to gain favor, which creates a very unique economy for them. Yeah, exactly, Kira Whiteness. Neelix is fine when he's fine. He's actually got some really, really good episodes, too. It's just everything else that's the problem. Loke the Night Reaper says, if you could command one of the super units in this game... Well, I don't know which game I was talking about. Shoot. Hang on, I should be reading his head. We're going to be going through several of these here. Stumpy McPatch asks, what would you say is the worst game I've ever played? Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. Staying on brand. I like it. Yeah, exactly, Von Falkenstein. You've got an interesting character premise with a good actor that's just being thrown out the frickin' window. Jay Palmer says, what's the most imaginative mechanic you've seen in a game? And I don't know if I have an answer for that. It's probably something from Nintendo, to be very honest about that. Nintendo has always been just pushing the limits of what gaming can be and what gaming is. And, I mean, regardless of historical context, there's still so much, so many times in so many Zelda games and so many Mario games that they have just shoved gaming forward in a way that it just blew me away. So I can't name a specific individual thing. Maybe the time thing in Skyward Sword. Maybe the fighting through the boss's eyes in Phantom Hourglass. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff there. Thank you very, very much, Keone. Remember, you can actually put that towards up to 3 things, rather than just limiting yourself to 1. But I will, at the very least, put it towards Xenogears. Thank you. Hi, Ginger Ninja. So Sean asked an interesting question. This is a good question. If in Red, the Red Dead Redemption run gets funded, would I consider playing 2 before 1? So, I don't want to spoil, so all I'm going to say is that in my mind, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 are fundamentally disconnected from each other. If you played them as completely different games, it barely changes anything between the two of them. And I know that's weird because 2 leads directly into 1. Like immediately into 1. But it also doesn't. 2 ends in a way that could be considered final. And if 1 never existed, 2 isn't altered. Like, 2 doesn't end on a to be continued. 2 ends, and then 1 starts. And 1 is just... And then 1 just kind of goes off and does its own thing. So I don't think playing 1 or 2 first actually, honestly, even matters. Having said that, what we'll probably do is go ahead and play 1 first, simply for the reason we usually do, to see how the gameplay mechanics develop and see how the cutscenes develop and stuff like that. Jay Palmer says, when I review Skyrim, I'm going to use Sky UI after I demonstrate how bad the default UI is. Probably not. No, we're probably just going to live with the default UI the entire time, because screw me. Okay, I'm going to share this question with the crowd. Loke the Night Ripper asks, what was the peak moment in the sequel trilogy for you? I'm expecting right now at least one person is going to say when it ended, or like the credits, or something like that. You know, everyone in chat's like, wait, there was a sequel trilogy? Was it just me? Did I dream it? Was it just me, guys? Oh my god. The greatest moment. I mean, from a real-life perspective, running through pouring rain in a thin shirt without an umbrella, laughing with my sister and my friend as we're going to see episode 7 was actually a great moment and a great day. Did you not... Can you not hear me? Am I not audible? I should be extremely audible. My audio should sound really good, Pancakes. Why doesn't my audio sound good, Pancakes? Why? Why? Ah, okay, I'm okay. What's the best moment in the sequel trilogy for you? Let me think about that. It's not going to be from the middle film. I'm going to say that right now. It's either the firing of the super weapon in the first film, or the lightning storm in the third film. I would say one of those two moments are my favorite individual moments in that film. There's a third moment that only technically qualifies, and that's the scene where the thing happens with Chewbacca, which I'm kind of dancing around on purpose, which would be an excellent, amazing, powerful scene, which would be a great insight into the way the Force works and how Rey needed to control herself and blah, 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 blah. But then they undid it, so it kind of doesn't get credit for that. I think that's going to be my answer. If they hadn't undone that, that would honestly be a legit moment. It even comes at a good time. It's just, anyways, whatever. Moving on. Let's see here. I know I've answered several of these. Quite possibly, Justin. I mean, I got 60 pages of this stuff to go through. Disco Inferno asks, has there ever been a time when you tried to show someone something you love and they ended up having a terrible time with it? Oh, all the time. All the time. That's normal. I cannot be the only one for whom that is normal. Hey, check out this great game. Hey, check out this great show. Right? That's normal. I do not, Doom Rider. It's local. It's right there. It says boop. All the songs you're listening to right now are either variances or accordances, in order to, with a couple of exceptions, in order to be safer for streaming. Don Crow asks, what's a great game story with a laughably bad outro? Neverwinter Nights 2. I have that answer right off the top of my head. Doesn't even take a moment. God, like, also KOTOR 2, while we're on the subject. But I know that everyone bashes the Mass Effect 3 ending, including me, by the way. I actually reviewed it recently, and it's extremely bad. But no, Neverwinter Nights 2, it's, oh my god. It's so bad. It's so bad on every level. It's bonkers how bad it is. Whatever you're thinking right now, if you're not familiar with it, is inaccurate to how bad it is. Hey, Panka asks, how's the bathroom you're working on coming along? So the bathroom's functional right now. No, that's not including Mask of the Betrayer. I've actually only played through Mask of the Betrayer like twice, ever. And I have some soured opinions on it, but I don't want to go into that right now. So the bathroom's coming along great. It's actually the most finished thing in the unfinished part of the basement right now. The shower works, I use it every night. And the bathroom works, and I use that, and it's great. It's comfortable, it's airy, it's clean, it smells nice, which is important to me when it comes to a bathroom. We got a really nice toilet. I purchased some brand new toilets, actually installed some upstairs as well. But I also got one of them for myself, and the shower's legit. It's a nice big old cube shower. It's not a bathtub shower, it's just a shower. And I've got one of those rain things going on, which goes shh, which is awesome. And very comfortable and legit. I love it. Gum Gum asks, how would I feel if the planet today had 50 trillion people? Ah! Let's see here. Delete. Deleting as we go here. It's okay, we're down to 61 pages. You gotta give me a second here. Because I've actually answered several of these. Excuse me. I remember some of these. We jumped ahead quite a bit. We're already in June. Actually, no, this is July already. Ect asks, what games do I personally think deserve full price? To limit my answer to this, first of all, several Final Fantasies. But to limit my answers, I'm going to limit myself to just games I've reviewed. And we're just going to sort by golden number. Everything from this point up. I'm kind of not joking. I would honestly say that pretty much any game that I've reviewed that has more than 100 on the golden number is worth buying full price. I could honestly shrink it down even below that if I really wanted to. But all of these games, Diablo 3, Portal 2, Metroid Dread, Shovel Knight, Mega Man 11, Mass Effect 2, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Dragon Quest Builders 2, Modern Warfare 2, like all of these I would and in many cases have paid full price for. No hesitation, no question. Venetia Silver asks, so tonally, the three FF7s, which is Xenogears, Parasite Eve, and FF7 itself, do I think they have any common trends or themes, or how do they split? So I think it's more accurate to say that they have common DNA, but they're actually really different from each other. Looking at Eve, for example, in the mitochondria, versus Lavos versus you-know-who in Xenogears, other than the very, very vague big alien thing commonality, they're completely different entities with completely different approaches, and they're used very differently within the stories in question. Gameplay-wise, they have almost nothing to do with each other. So, yeah, it's like... I don't really have an analogy here, to be honest with you. It's like whenever you're working on, like, 3 things at once, and you have an idea that doesn't work for one, so you use it for another. That's what I mean when I say DNA. It's actually pretty common. A lot of movies and shows will share DNA like that. Actually, a couple other games that share DNA with those games, which happen to include Chrono Trigger, which I just referenced, and also Secret of Mana, and Final Fantasy VI. Anyways. Rolling down a little bit. Ginger Ninja. Hang on. Ginger Ninja asks, so I came across a mod for Morrowind that changes the attack formula of the game so that every attack hits. This includes enemy attacks against you. Do you think this is a good quality of life feature, or does it detract from the original design? I don't know enough about the underpinnings of the combat engine to answer that thoroughly. Because how they balance damage and how they balance attacks is based, at least in part, around the fact that not all of them are going to land. However, having said that, if you put a gun to my head and said, make a decision right now, I'd be like, okay. I would go ahead and say immediately that yes, no, that is a good quality of life feature that should either be a toggle within the game or should just be default. Because there's nothing really enjoyable about... Well, okay, that's a bad example. And then you hit them, right? That's not gameplay. I'm sorry, that's not gameplay. That's wasting my time. Let's see. Justin T asks, any adorable stories of playing with the nieces from recently? Now, that was asked a couple of months ago, but, oh god, when was that? That was a few days ago, wasn't it? Actually, I think it was last week. Just recently, I was playing with the kiddos, and so I'm sitting, I sat down on the couch because I was a little bit like, ugh. And so the middle niece popped up on my left side here and was like, and started climbing up on my shoulders. And the littlest niece, who is very much in the I'm doing anything my sister does phase, sees that and immediately starts trying to climb me. And she's a little bit less coordinated, so she's having issues, so I kind of help her out. And what ends up happening, and I've actually got a picture of this, I'm not going to show it to you, but I managed to get this on camera, is I'm just walking around with one niece clinging to my back and the other one kind of clinging to my front, like here. And I'm carrying them around as we're like, oh, God, no! And I was pretending I was a roller coaster for them. And they were, you know, trying desperately to hold on because the roller coaster was breaking. And then so every now and again, the middle niece would be like, fix. And so that would fix the roller coaster again. Then we're like, oh no! And we'd collide with the wall, and then we have to get fixed again. It was the whole thing. Let's see. Questions. Hang on, scrolling down. We're actually past another page. Woo! I'm almost positive I answered this. But Sean asks, based on what we know so far, how am I feeling about Starfield? So, short answer. Very hyped. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I'm probably going to dump a bucket of dealer's choice on it so we can play it soon to when it comes out. Slightly more complex answer. The main plot is going to suck. In fact, the main plot already sucks. It's one of the most boring, generic sci-fi stories ever to exist because it's been the same goddamn sci-fi story we've seen for the last 60 years. So that's dumb. The people interactions, the motion capture, the animations on the faces, all that look terrible. And they've probably overblown the size of it. But based on what I've seen of it, I don't think the size of it is actually going to be an issue. I'm very much looking forward to the ship stuff. The side quest stuff looks fantastic. I enjoy the voice acting, and I enjoy the flavor of a lot of what they've shown in terms of the quote-unquote meat of the content. So in short, I think the MSQ is going to be a negative. But I think the primary, secondary, and optional secondary stuff is going to be awesome. How many hard drives will it fit on? 57! Dr. Winter asks, so do I think Kingdom Hearts 1 will score well? No. Now, I know that's a contentious statement because there's been this recurring trend for the last 4 years at this point. It's been going for a minute. That Kingdom Hearts 1 is this great game, and it's wonderful and amazing and incredible. And I don't agree with that. I didn't agree with that then, and I certainly don't agree with that now. When I did the double lore run of Kingdom Hearts, one of the things that just smacked me in the face was how bad Kingdom Hearts 1 was. Now, it does do several things very well. It's very much a first game, and it very much has a lot of rough edges, but you could tell, it just like most first games that managed to be successful, you could tell where it's going, and you could tell why it caught people. So, I do think it's going to probably score, you know, not completely terrible. It's not going to be Lamentation territory. But I legitimately would not be surprised if Kingdom Hearts 1 was a net negative on the golden number. When Falkenstein says, did you max out the Altar of Rights in a D3 season? No, I've never had time. Wanted to, believe it or not, but... Scroll down a little bit here. Von Falkenstein says, will there be the Odyssey dab again? We'll have to ask Hazardous about that one. Probably Von Focus. I've probably answered several of these. My memories aren't perfect, okay? This is stuff from a month and a half ago. Scroll. I know I answered that one. Would I veto Gollum if people tried to fund it? No. But I would probably just let it sit there and die, because nobody's going to fund that. Like, let's be honest. Nobody's going to fund that. Yeah, exactly. Baron asks, Nameless Baron asks, will people ever clamor and request for FF14 1.0, as in a FF14 Classic? People have already asked that. The answer has already been answered more than once. The answer is hell no. And I don't blame them. A lot of people don't understand how much effort and work goes into making a legal, official, emulated server, effectively. Because when a player puts it up, it doesn't. They don't have to go through a lot of necessary hoops that exist to make sure it's stable, to make sure it's going to maintain its uptime, to make sure that they're conforming to security requirements and account login stuff. And there's all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff that have to be solved. It's one of the reasons why WoW Classic took so long to finally roll out, is because they had a lot of problems to solve under the hood. It was Zeiss. That's another problem. Because another thing that has to be decided is how much of the original do we want to save here? Like, do we want just the original game completely as is? Because the original game completely as is had issues. Same thing with WoW Vanilla, by the way. Like I don't mean like, the issues I'm talking about. I'm talking like server stability issues. I'm talking bugs that involve whether or not you're able to save talent changes or stuff like that. There's all sorts of issues that had to be decided. Do we want to keep that? And every single one of those issues had to be a conversation. Do we keep this one? Do we axe this one? I don't know. Let's roll it up through several of these. Crazy Norse says, I know MMOs do their scale make for good stories to tell. Which genres besides those are best for making exciting organic stories? In my opinion, and I know you're going to think RPGs, but actually no. RPGs almost universally have the story and then the gameplay in separate rooms, and occasionally they'll shout things at each other throughout the room. And that's fine, that's the RPG format, I don't mind that. But like, in a story just developing organically, that's usually in the realm of platformers, which tend to do that a lot more. There's a reason why Metroid games, to use a specific example, tend to have such a strong story axis. It's because almost all that story is told just in the game. Just as you're playing through it, right? You walk into a room and you see this glass shattered on the ground, and that's it, and you're like, oh god! Stuff like that. Hell, I was playing Metroid Prime 1, the remaster, of course, with my niece, and she had already encountered Metroids and already learned to fear them for very good reason. So we went to the Fenandra Drifts, or not the Drifts, sorry, the research lab, which is the second time you go there. And we're going through this lab, and she looks up and she sees, oh, hang on, there's a Metroid in that encasement over there. I was like, yeah, but don't worry about it, it's in that casement over there. And she's just like freaking out about it because there's a Metroid over there. And that means, and she correctly picked up on this, that means that they've been experimenting on the Metroids, and holy crap, and it's just stuff like that, right? The story is there as part of the gameplay, and I think platformers usually tend to pull the best out of that. But, as Killer Bean points out, FPSs are another good example, and I can think of several FPSs that do a lot of really good storytelling just in the thing. Hi, Mr. Red. Thank you. As always. Hang on. Where does Simpsons stream nowadays? On Fox? Yeah, that's not happening. Apparently Disney Plus. Okay. Cool. Now give me a second, because Disney is psychotic about how they do their availability thing. So they don't always have, like, for example, all the seasons available, which is what I'm trying to see here. Okay, so it looks like they do specifically have Season 1 on Disney+. Cool. They've only got 33 seasons, though. Alright, I will figure out later and off camera how far we go on that. Unless you want to be like, you should go to here, in which case feel free to tell me that. I don't know why I said that as your voice. I've heard your voice, Mr. You don't sound anything like that. But we'll go ahead and start with Season 1. But, not sure where we'll cut off. Let me think about that for a second. Because we've got a couple of options. We could... The end of stuff tends to be gradient rather than linear. You know, people like to point to a single moment and say, that's when things ended. But that's not actually how that works. There's usually a beginning of the end, and then there's an end of the end. And how long this gap in time tends to be varies. So, when was the end of Simpsons? When did Simpsons start being bad? Well, it started being bad in Season 9, and it ended being bad at about Season 13, give or take. I'd have to double-check the numbers up, but that's about where it is. So where exactly in this gradient do we decide to go ahead and chop it? Like, Season 9 still had some good stuff, like Trash the Titans, for example. I'm staring at it right here. We've also got Lisa the Simpson. Hey, DeQuack. Hope you like it, because if you don't, suck! What I mean is it concluded the arc of being bad in Season 13. By the time we get to Season 13 in Simpsons, it might be 12. It's 12 or 13. That's when Simpsons was officially bad. It had stopped being good. The level of good had left the arena, and it was just bad from that point onwards. That was just life. It's right here. Let me pull up Season 13 really quick here. So in 13, we've got Homer the Moe, which is whatever. She of Little Faith, which okay. Sweet and Sour Marge, was Jaws Wired Shut. Old Man and the Key. Yeah, I'm thinking we'll cut it off by 13 at the latest, I think is how I'm going to call that. We can debate that if we want to move that number forward, but 13 at the latest. That's still 13 seasons. That's going to be 1 billion years of streaminations, so... Yeah, no kidding, DeQuack. Although that's not completely true, because Season 1 is garbage. But anyways. So do we have a time limit when streaminations might return? Sometime next year. I am so far behind that... The idea of essentially losing a day to start streaminations back up again is something that's not even on the table. So sometime next year. Also, the answer to your question will be Arcane. We'll be starting up Arcane. So Loner asks, is there a game where after you get wiped and reload it gets easier? Yeah, actually, there's quite a few of those, but of course I can't think of any right now other than the dumb one, which is Plants vs. Zombies 2. For some reason, I don't know why that's the only one in my mind, but it is a relatively common thing, where the game has this dynamic difficulty thing. In some cases, it's funny, because if you're having issue with a section, you just die over and over and over really quick to make the game lower the difficulty, so you can progress. No, Ginger Ninja, this is Temporary Space number 2. I said that earlier, but I don't mind repeating, because I'm probably getting that question 500,000 times over the next week. In fact, let's make a game of it. Let's see how many times we get that question. We've already gotten to it twice. Don't apologize. It's going to happen a lot. That's my life. Oh. I don't think that really counts, because what was being asked about was rubber band difficulty, Theodorikos. The idea being that it just changes the difficulty depending on how well you're doing. Both directions, usually, too. If you keep succeeding, then it gets harder and harder and harder. And there's usually a gradient there. Hey, Dark Day. Hello, 040. This is 358, I'm almost positive. Let me double check that. Yep, 358. This is the Mission Hub area. So Pancakes asks a question I know I answered, but I want to answer it again. Do I think the War of the Chosen DLC doesn't make the game better? You know, pound for pound... If you asked me before we reviewed it, I would say it does make it better. But with the advantage of having gone through it with analysis mode, yeah, I think it actually kind of makes it worse. Like, there's something to actually do on the strategic layer, and it adds several quality of life changes. But it also adds an inordinate amount of slog. Like, it was just weird. I don't even. Thank you, O40, very, very much. As always, I will put that towards Voyager, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds. If that's the usual. If it's not, this is a good time to tell me, Lore, you're dumb. I hate you. Because if you tell me that, then I'll know. Oh my god, I know, pancakes. Just slog, just padding. Lots and lots and lots of additional seconds and minutes that were added with that DLC. Hi, Czar. Saberful Wife asks, what would a game have to do to earn 3 positives to world design? I assume that means like overworld design. I can think of several games that would do that, like Final Fantasy VI, for example. But it all boils down to making it not just flow well and logical and well designed, but like doing something else with it. Making the world design actually part of the gameplay. I suppose something like Twilight Princess would be in consideration for that. Several Zelda games would probably be in consideration for that. And I suppose several Metroidvanias would also be the other ones that would probably drift into triple territory. Thank you, Viplol. Viplol. I'm probably saying that extremely badly. I can't do pronunciations, okay? It's a thing. Thank you for the sub. If you want to put that towards up to 3 things of your choice for future streaming, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I appreciate the support. Thank you. Is this on random? This is not on random. No one were just stuck in Kingdom Heartsville. Jesus, there. Let's just randomize this. God, I'm exhausted. I have moved 2 computers today, Mr. Red, including this one. That computer right there, you have no idea how heavy that thing is. And if I screw up anything, that's my computer. I'm not, and you're probably thinking, oh, you're a braggart. Just this once I'm going to brag, because it's nice every now and again to confirm that, no, I am actually a very strong person. Yeah, it's a dual tower thing. It's literally as tall as my desk is. You got it, Viplol. I will put it towards dealer's choice. Thank you again very much for that support. Hi, Sean. I answered one of your questions earlier. Let's see. Let's put this down in dealer's choice. Let's see. Questions. What games... So Pancakes asks... What games... Shut up, Dark Day. What games have a really solid late game? So let me try to pick one per genre. Because otherwise I'm just going to be stuck in the Final Fantasies for a while. But RPGs, Final Fantasy VI. Very, very, very strong late game. I would also say... well, I mean, Pokemon is also an RPG, but I would agree. Several Pokemon games, especially Gen 3 and Gen 4, had a very, very strong late game. The Steven Stone fight is still one of the best fights in the franchise. Ditto with Ladyface. I can't think of her name. She's super popular. She's like the most popular character. I can't think of her damn name. From Gen 4. Anyways, let's see. For Metroidvanias, we've got Super, of course. Cynthia, thank you, Cynthia. Super Metroid has a fantastic late game. From like the perspective of a strategy game, I would say most of StarCraft 2's stuff has a really strong late game. Stellaris has a very, very strong late game. It's one of the better ones. I could probably keep going. There's a lot. It is the exception, not the rule, but it is. There are quite a few. I can't think of any other genres for some reason, so I'm just gonna stop there. Let's see here. I know I answered several of these. I smell food. Oh, that's right. We're having breakfast burritos today. That's interesting. I shouldn't even smell that. That means that's coming in through the vent. Because like the way I've got the air set up is I've got air going out the staircase and I've got air going to the intake valve. So air is pretty much going like this away from me. So that means the air has to be coming through that. It's okay. We're using these really, really, really good ribs for the meat in the breakfast burritos. No, seriously, it's the best. It's the best ribs we've ever grilled here. Let's see. Scrolling down, scrolling down. Favorite racing... Pancakes asks, favorite racing games I've ever played. Mario Kart 8. Get that out of the way. But I also really liked The Crew 1. Specifically 1, not 2. I obviously enjoyed Gran Turismo 3 or 4. It's the one on the PS2, specifically. I can't remember which number it was. And there was this one Need for Speed game, and I can never remember the name of the damn game. But it was really, really good. I enjoyed the hell of it. And you're probably thinking, wasn't that one? No, no, no. It's not one of the ones you're thinking. It was like a Gaiden game. Because it was one of the only times that they... So Need for Speed is like, it's a plot-based thing, right? But this was just go race. And it was really fun. It was arcade leaning towards simulator. It wasn't full sim, like, you know, Forza or Gran Turismo, but it was still leaning towards sim and less of an arcadey kind of a thing. It was really, really fun. I had a lot of fun with that one. I don't remember which one it was. I'm looking at the timeline of this. It might have been Shift 2. Need for Speed Shift 2. Either way, it was a really good game. Hang on, let me look this up. Need for Speed Shift 2. Let me just look at some visuals here, because that might help. Maybe. I don't know. I give up. Let's see here. Bunch of Mario Kart questions, which I'm pretty sure we answered as we were going. I mean, we definitely answered some of these. Umbral Magnus asks, what Dragon Quest games would I recommend for someone who's never played one? 4, if you can get a hold of it, which is the proviso there. Pirate. I mean, the DS ones are legit games, and 4 is probably seminal Dragon Quest, but god dang, good luck getting a hold of a legal copy of that crap. I'm just glad I happened to buy those games when they came out. They're actually right here. And there. But in those two totes right there. Holy crap. If you can't get a hold of that, Dragon Quest 8 would be my other suggestion, which is on the 3DS, which is also problematic to get a hold of. Can we get some forward ports of the Dragon Quest series, please? Anyways. I would never recommend 11 for a first game. And the specific reason why is I never recommend the best of something for the first of something. In my opinion, it completely colors and changes your perspective on the whole franchise. I mean, imagine if FF6 was your first Final Fantasy game, or if Empire Strikes Back was your first Star Wars movie, or if Modern Warfare 2 was your first first-person shooter, right? I mean, I know all those are debatable, but you get my point, right? You're starting at such a high bar that no matter what else you're doing, it's going to be like, ugh. So I usually recommend people start with something that's good, but a little bit more indicative. Something that's a more indicative of the good and the bad of the franchise. Which is why I recommend you start with FF4 or TNG Season 3 or all sorts of other stuff. I've come up with a whole list over the years of stuff to start with. Depending on the franchise. Excuse me. Umbral Magnus also asks, opinion on Dragon Quest IX. I remember enjoying 9, but I also was playing it while mindlessly grinding. So I'm pretty sure it's an extremely grindy game, and that's probably going to drag it down. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit more here. Sorry, I've got page after page after page of some of these. A lot of these aren't even questions. I know that this isn't going to change anything, but please don't type !Q if you don't have a question. It's just going to clog the queue. That's all it's doing. You know, like right now, as I'm pushing through the queue, looking at all these things, a lot of which are not questions. Mr. Red says, Dragon Quest game you'd want to live in the most. I think I answered that one, but on the off chance I didn't. I feel like 8 is a good pick there. 8 or 11. Both of them are worlds that are, honestly, doing really well for themselves. And and don't really suffer from, you know, large-scale hoods in their society or their living state or whatever. I could also see 11. Or did I say 11? Sorry, 7. 7. I could also see 7. The biggest problem with 7 is obvious. Like, that's... when the devil shows up in order to seal away the entire planet out of just spite, you know you've got an issue. Looks like we finally reached Dragon Quest Builder 2 stream. That's interesting. So we've got an Extant question, not our first one. Ect asks, what's the form of recruitment within the Empire? And if it's voluntary, how does it deal with being unattractive towards people, like in some real-life light nations today, i.e. any country without conscription and not the U.S. when it comes to volunteer service? So, obviously there is a currency within the Extant and the Empire, because I'm not an idiot. And so, looking at you, Star Trek! So, obviously there's a currency there, actually several currencies, and obviously there are incentive-based economics which allow people to try and have more in order to want more, and therefore you can get more pay, not just for yourself, but for your family and your immediate family when it comes to joining military service. There's also the obvious fact that a lot of people do just simply want to serve, and some people are just interested in that kind of a thing with regards to wanting to have that kind of career. As I've said many, many times, and something that fiction really needs to get through its thick goddamn skull, is that military does not just solely focus around killing other people. There's a lot of jobs involved in running a military, and especially a very, very well-honed, well-tuned military like the Empire's military is the kind of situation where you just get the enjoyment of being able to work alongside other professionals at the peak of your field, which is something that I know not everybody understands, but I'm sure at least some of you in chat right now, you get that kind of vibe, right? You understand what it's like to enjoy being able to work with someone who can work at your level, for lack of a better way to put that. I myself have that with a couple of things. There's a few things that I'm just really good at, and it's nice to be able to hang with someone else who is also really good at that kind of thing. You know what it is. You know how it is. Or maybe you don't. That's also cool, too. I suppose that kind of answers the question. No, there's no conscription, because conscription is awful. But, moving on. Actually, answer that question. I'm going to re-answer this question, because it's a good question. What's your best tips to fight impulse spending? Pause. This is actually the best tip to fight impulse anything, actually, but pausing for a moment, forcing yourself, like pulling yourself away from yourself for a second and forcing yourself to pause and be like, hang on. Do I really need those milk duds? And you can still get the milk duds. I ain't here to shame. But if you pause and you think about it, then it's less likely to be an impulse buy. Sounds like. Same thing if, like, you're getting pissed off. It's like, hang on. I really want to slug that person. And then you decide, yes. But the point is, pausing allows your brain to engage. The whole point of what impulse stuff is it's usually, I forget what it's called. It's when your brain isn't actually engaged in the action. It's more instinctual stuff. No, Sean! The military are not the bad. God dang it. What is this, Avatar? Anyways. The bad one, Ginger Ninja. No offense if anybody likes Avatar films, but scripts are not their high marks. Act asked an interesting question. Name 3 companies I'd personally be invested in if I won the lottery. So first of all, the lottery would not be enough money to invest in a meaningful manner, so that's just like a way to kind of go into that. But I would probably go into, I can't remember their name, but it's an electric company that does a whole lot of stuff. Oh wait, it was specifically gaming companies, wasn't it? No, it says, hang on. No, it's just 3 companies. Well, hang on, let's limit ourselves to gaming companies. So, in that case, Nintendo, even though that's another step to go into, I think I've talked about that before. Investing in foreign companies is a whole thing, but still, Nintendo. I would also probably go with... It's actually a tough one, because most of the publicly traded companies suck to some extent or another. I'm actually going to say EA on that list. I know that's weird, but I'm going to stick with that. And... I think for my third option of trying to be least bad, we'll go with... Yeah, I'm really torn on this, because like most of the publicly traded gaming companies all are garbage. It is just ZeniMax, Dark Day. Although I don't... No, ZeniMax is actually Microsoft. So you know what? Yeah, we'll go with Microsoft. We'll do Microsoft. So Nintendo, I've already forgotten the second one, and Microsoft. That's what we'll go with for our three. Because Ubisoft can go to hell. 2K can... EA, that's right, thank you. EA. So 2K can go to hell. Ubisoft can go to hell. Tencent can go to hell. Active Blizzard's going to be under Microsoft soon. Do I think Chris Avellone has a chance to come back for games since the allegations against him were proven wrong? I sure frickin' hope so. But the answer is, who knows? Because those kind of allegations can either be fought successfully or failed miserably, depending on just a coin flip. Who knows? That's all there is to that. Who knows? Also depends on if he wants to. He might be soured by that whole experience. I mean, you saw what happened with Dying Light 2, to give a specific example. And for those of you who were not there for that, Dying Light 2 had Avellone involved and had this whole story arc it was going to do. And then they torpedoed him when the allegations started. And then the actual story that they went with Dying Light 2 is one of the dumbest goddamn zombie stories I've ever seen in my life. We actually were going to do a full 4-player playthrough of that, me and my friends, and we decided not to because it was junk. And I loved Dying Light 1. Anyways, let's see here. I've actually answered that one. Yeah, VTMB2. It's another one, which still hasn't come out, and frankly, may never. Oh God, Zeiss. It's so bad. They torpedoed it. They torpedoed the story. It's bad. It's so bad. I mean, it's not like Dying Light 1's story was some magnum opus of amazingness, but it was good. I was invested in what was happening in the characters, and I liked a lot of the story sequencing and the specific moments and events. It's just, you know, whatever. Moving on. Let's see here. It's going down. Mr. Red says, try to think of a negative for a class in a while. I'm pretty sure I answered this, but I've got the answer for you right now, right off the top of my head. Energy bar. Rogues. There you go. There's my answer right there. Bam. I don't know what I answered last time, but that's the answer. Energy bar. It's dumb. Games with the most... I'm not sure if it would deserve a negative. I'd have to think about that. It might merely be an absence of a positive. Game with the most talent tied to it that is actually really bad. See, that's a tricky one, because usually games with talent fail. Like, that's a semi-common thing. But a game with talent that's bad? Okay, hang on. I'm gonna piss off everyone here. Fallout 1. No. No, I can go worse than that. System Shock 1. Because System Shock 1 is not a good game. But it had a lot of very talented people in it. This is kind of a retroactive talented people, because nobody knew at the time that they were very talented people, but they were. And System Shock 1 has had such a gargantuan splash on the gaming industry. It's actually one of the most influential games literally ever made. So, yeah, no, System Shock 1 was a very, very bad game, which had some extraordinarily talented people involved. Do I prefer modern or retro games more? Neither, and also both. I don't care. It's not part of the equation for me whether a game is old, new, or in between. I don't care. I care whether a game is good. That's it, that's all. We did, Dark Knight. We got tons of stuff out of System Shock 1. That's the point. I'm not joking when I say if I made like a list of the top 10 most influential games, System Shock 1 has a chance of being on that list. It had influenced a huge amount of games. Anyways. Excuse me. Blade Deval asks, why do I suppose Square Enix abandoned Gambits post FF12? The same reason Square Enix abandons every good idea they've ever had immediately after they move on from the game. It's because they have this squirrel in their brain that's just running around screeching at full tilt, and it's just and so they just have to abandon good mechanics every now and again. But the job system from FF5 has never come back. It's why the materia system has never come back. It's why Magicite system has never come back. Anyways. Czar asks, how do I keep enjoying playing games while also streaming and reviewing them? Is it tiring or not? That feels like a weird question. I get where you're going with that, but to me that feels like strange to ask that. It's like saying, Lore, I know you have to eat this amazing meal every day, but do you ever get tired of eating good food? No, I don't. As I've said before, I'm weird. I know that I'm kind of unusual in this and that I don't really get tired of stuff like that. So the fact that this is my job has never actually drained me. It's never actually bothered me. Because streaming is something that's smooth and enjoyable and mentally engaging, and especially because I'm reviewing, because I really, really wanted to review. As I've said many times, the reviews are as much for me as they are for you, because I really, really enjoy reviewing. I like categorizing, I like organizing, you know, I enjoy being able to point to something and saying, this, and here's my hard data proving it, as opposed to vague answers. I don't like vague answers. I don't like vaguely saying, well, this is my favorite movie because and I don't like vaguely saying, well, this restaurant sucks because I like being able to say, well, it did this, this, and this right, but this and this wrong. So here's what I actually think of the game in the end, and that's kind of where the review system is at. So either way, no, I do not get tired of them. I absolutely still enjoy games. I enjoyed 2 of them over the last week. Yeah, I'm not a very abstract person. I'm a very fundamental, very practical and pragmatic person. I like things that are tangible and measurable, because in my opinion, everything is measurable. You just have to do it right. This is Radiant Historia. Good ear. She decided to dye her hair, Zakta. It's fine. We all need a hair change every now and again. Ect asks, what's your down and up of your internet for comparison? Actually, I just checked that like an hour ago because I was making sure I had connection. I am currently at 900 down and 60 up, which is not great, but it is just barely good enough. Mr. Red says, shows that have ended on a limitation other than TOS and Enterprise. So that's my first answer, is Enterprise. But my second answer would be The Sopranos. Yeah, I'm willing to say that. Also, while we're on the subject, Lost. I sure hope so, Tiny Shroom, but that's not as much up to me as you'd think. Jay Palmer says, what's the worst food you've had at a restaurant? Obviously, by default, that's any of the times I've been made sick from a restaurant. So let's see. We've got Red Robin, which made me sick, gave me food poisoning. And then the exact same Red Robin, which gave me food poisoning. We've also got... There was this one Subway, which was in a Walmart, which I can't put into words how bad it was. I want you to imagine, like... No, the second time... A restaurant giving you food poisoning isn't that big of a deal. I know that sounds strange. But if it happens a second time, that's when you don't go to that restaurant anymore. Anyways. Yes, I am Tiny Shroom. That's the hope, anyways. I used to love Red Robin, and then they got rid of my favorite thing. They had this... I don't know what to call it. It was like a pot roast burger. And they got rid of it and replaced it with the pot roast burger, which was a completely different burger. Different ingredients, different meat, different everything. And it pissed me off. Anyway, sorry. How bad was the food poisoning? I literally threw out my back vomiting. If you don't know what that means, good, because nobody should ever have to experience throwing out your back. But it was bad. It was really bad. Anyways, but so this Subway, right? I want you to imagine that bread that is absolutely stale and dry and flaky, so like, and it just feels weird as you're going through it. I want you to imagine meat that has bits of ice still on it. I want you to imagine lettuce that's like it's starting to, you know, when the lettuce starts to go a little more translucent because it's essentially rotting. Worst Subway I've ever had. It was in a Walmart. It was terrible. But all of that pales in comparison to Outback, which is a steakhouse. I go to this Outback and I order a steak, and I should mention Outback is not super cheap. They pull out the steak and I'm like, oh, thanks. And I go to take a bite and it was gelatinous. I don't want to stress this. I don't mean like it had fat in it, although it probably did. I don't mean it was undercooked. I mean it was jelly meat. I never actually figured out exactly what was wrong with it, but it, try to be shocked, gave me food poisoning. It was really bad. I've never been back to Outback. Anyways. Jay Palmer asks, what games would you force someone to play as a method of torture? First of all, not a big fan of torture, so I wouldn't do it. But you put a gun to my head and you're torturing me to torture someone else, so it's just a cycle of torture. Oh God, Kira, what noise? So in that case, I did actually work for it. I feel like the King's Field series is a really good game series to go to torture someone. Mr. Red apparently agrees with me on this. If you suffer damage... Oh, God, that's terrible. Oh, that's terrible. Let's see, what else? I'm trying to think of games that are just actively aggravating to play. Not bad games, but aggravating games. And I've made that distinction many times. Meanwhile, someone's trying to hack my Microsoft account for some reason. Let's see. I feel like there's other game franchises that would just be aggravating to go through, but honestly, I think we're good. I think we'll just say King's Field. You have to beat all the King's Fields in order. That's it. Once you're done, you've served your time. That's it. Anyways, Stanley Parable. Well, no, see, you could beat Stanley Parable in like 3 hours, Euro. So that's not super indicative. I'm pretty sure I answered that one. I don't remember if I answered this one. Dumbest single thing about Final Fantasy that's not lightning. I mean, the obvious answer is the frickin' basketball scene. Just immediately jumped into my mind there. Or snow. Okay, that's cheating. That's cheating. I've leveled it and already stopped using it. I usually just get new ships, level them, and then space dock them. Well, I haven't reviewed it, Valerian, but all I'm saying is that FF13 is the dumbest, worst game ever made, and if you like it, you're a moron. I haven't reviewed it. I'm actually curious to. It'll be fascinating to see how it reviews. I don't think it's going to review very well. I don't. But it'll be interesting to see how it reviews. I do. My Lexington is still functionally my main. I bounce around a bit just when I'm bored, but I haven't seen anything that really has jumped on me like the Lexington. I'm just going to go with the basketball scene. It's just the easiest answer. We're just going to go with that and move on. Scrolling down. We're still streaming Dragon Quest Builders 2 at this point. Scroll. Here, this is another thing people like to do. They like to put a question in the queue like 5 times in a row. Don't do that. It's already there. It's in the queue. I mean, it just clogs up the queue. It just makes more to delete. It's not like I'm going to answer your question twice. I know I answered that question. I don't remember if I answered this one. Never warp core. What's the biggest mistake Blizzard made when adding something to WoW's gameplay or interface that wasn't an expansion? Biggest gameplay mistake. You type !Q and then space, and then you type your question, Killer Bean. I feel like I answered this one, but in the off chance I didn't, the answer is either when they completely screwed aggro generation at the beginning of Cataclysm, or when they decided to completely screw with the global cooldown during the beginning of BFA. I should mention that both of those changes were undone a single patch after they made them because they were terrible, terrible decisions. Mr. Red asks, about a month ago, do you think the Microsoft deal will close today? No. Valton Ryu asks, I consider the 3DS remakes of Ocarina and Majora to definitive version, which I do. Would I say the same for the Link's Awakening remake? I've had some time to sit on this, because the Link's Awakening remaster, which is, let's be honest with Elf, a remaster, it's actually just a port, really. It's a good port, though. Is, yes, I would say it's the definitive edition, because it's a lot easier to play, it's a lot more accessible, it has a lot less to slow down, the music sounds better, and it's just generally a better presented version of the same thing. It is a remaster. That's exactly what it says. What's Blizzard's biggest mistake? In gameplay or in real life? Because we've got a category for the latter at this point. Grayson Ross says, have you ever played Crusader of Senti? Lol. No, obviously. So this is when we're up to the randomizer. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, hang on. Let's restart. Restart the page. I feel like I answered this one. What's my favorite Zelda final dungeon? I think I went with Ganon's Tower and LTTP. Although Hyrule Castle and Twilight Princess is a pretty damn good one, too. I answered a lot of these. I've been doing a good job about answering questions as they come through, which is good. The question queue is more for... It's partially to catch my attention, but it's also for questions I miss. Like if you ask something when I'm in the middle of doing something, I can save it for later, like for these streams right now. Sorry, I'm going through a lot of questions at this point, which we have already answered. We're up to Luigi's Mansion 3 now. I don't remember if I answered this one. Mr. Red asks, most important random side quest in WoW. Most important. The obvious answer is the one that talks about Arthas Menethil in Northrend. The real Arthas. You know, not the original Arthas. His soul. But other than that... Yeah, I mean, it's just a really, really important one. There's also the Cancer Quest, yeah, which was a really big quest for developing how the Undead Plague worked. Also an Ice Crown. There's also a very, very recent quest. It's literally a talkie quest. There's no gameplay to it whatsoever, where you go talk to a dragon in Dragonflight. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's just him talking about his past. That's it. That's all it is. It's a really good quest. Really, really good story. Let's see. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. So Von Falkenstein asks, did you ever play SimCity 2014, the EA one? Yes, is the answer to that question, of course. But I don't remember if I told you the specifics, because me and Pax played that. It had co-op, which was awesome, by the way. One of the better features of an otherwise very lackluster SimCity game. We put that game down pretty quickly because it was pretty boring. But the fact that it had co-op honestly made it. So I forget all what he exported to me, but I know he exported crime to my city. Yes, really. And it was kind of funny to deal with, because I would just set up all sorts of things to deal with the crime he was shoving down my throat. You could do, like, exports and imports and trade deals, and you could share borders, decide rules across the region. It was some cool stuff. It was some neat stuff, and I kind of wish we could have another city builder that has that kind of co-op gameplay, and one that's actually good would be nice. But anyways. Noctis asks, is there anything in game design that I dislike, but I can't give a negative to? Yeah, there's lots, but of course, let me think of, like, one thing here. Something that irritates me, but I can't really give it a negative. I mean, obviously, there's the fact that a game pauses when I alt-tab. I hate that. Whether I'm streaming or not, I hate that. It bugs the crap out of me. Ooh, I agree with that, Von Falkenstein. That was a good feature. It wasn't a terrible SimCity game. It's just, it was kind of lackluster, you know, especially compared to a lot of the other offerings we've had. Especially since it was going up against City Skylines, which just kind of blew it completely out of the water. Even vanilla City Skylines. Just crunched. Not letting me rebind the controllers stuff is another thing that I don't necessarily give a negative for. That's kind of it, actually. There's a few little niggling things like that. I'll leave it at that. Ow. I know I answered that one. I know I answered that one. Bacon-wrapped sausages on steak with potatoes. I'm randomly hungry for some reason. Walker says, what score in my review system do I consider must-play? Honestly, anything above 100. Like, anything above 100 is a very, very good game. It depends, Andity. It always depends. It's always case by case. I'm not going to give a negative for Mega Man 3 for not letting me rebind the controllers. But if I'm playing, random example, Stellaris, and Stellaris does not let me rebind the controls, well then that's a negative. I don't like it when it pauses when I alt-tab. I like the game to keep running in the background. I'm sorry, Von Falkenstein. We're having rib steak burritos tonight. Does that make you feel better? I know I answered that question. I know I answered this question too, but I'm going to go ahead and answer this again because this is a common question I've gotten. What difficulty am I going to play Baldur's Gate 3 on? Easiest. And we're also going to have the bad luck protection dice mode on. Because that will speed it up. And that's the reason. I'll mention this again when we actually start streaming Baldur's Gate 3. That is a long-ass game. I'm not going to slog it down just by playing on a harder difficulty, which will make every single fight longer. No way in hell. We're not doing that. I have absolutely no doubt that I would enjoy Tactician mode because I did in DOS 2. And I have no doubt that I would enjoy normal mode because I like turn-based tactical games. I love them. But I'm not making that stream a month and a half. Yeah, I saw that, Ventures, and we'll talk about that. We'll get there. Anyways, delete. I haven't decided if we're going to be a Dark Urge yet. I haven't gotten there yet. We'll have to decide that. We might have to pull the audience on that one because, like, my automatic inclination is no. If I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 just by myself, I would absolutely not use the Dark Urge option. But for the purposes of a review, we'll see. We'll see. Sorry, reading more. We're up to about 3 weeks ago now. We'll make a brand new character, by the way. We'll probably spend the first session of streaming just doing it. What's Dark Urge? Watch the stream. You'll see what I mean. We'll talk about it when we start the stream. Which might be tomorrow. I'm not committing to that, though. But the idea is to start Baldur's Gate 3 tomorrow. Now that we're here, and the test seems to be going well. We're up to the 26th now. Let's see. I answered a lot of these. Yeah, the Dark Urge is honestly reasonably self-explanatory. I'm pretty sure I know what it is in lore, but I don't know that certainty, so I'm not even going to mention that, because that might be a spoiler. I should mention that I don't know with certainty what it is. That is speculation. Visual Eminem asks, would I recommend the DS monogames? Just the remake of 1, which I think was actually a GBA game. So no, would be the answer to that question. There's a DS monogame, which is an RTS of all things, which normally I'd be totally cool with. It's bad. It's the simplest way I can put that. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just, no thank you. Mockingbird says, I know you're a fan of speedrunning. Are there any games you think you would have a legitimate chance of speedrunning with only the knowledge I have on hand? Obviously, there's the ones I know very well, but I do legitimately think I could speedrun several games. In fact, I always had a wish list of games I wanted to get into speedrunning. A lot of platformers, because of course, but several Zeldas I wanted to walk into. I actually, some of you probably don't remember, I used to speedrun Ocarina of Time. I had a child percent thing, which ended the moment you get the Ocarina. I also used to speedrun Final Fantasy VI, which was a lot of fun, too. So, yes, would be the answer to that question. There's Czar's question about the side quest. I know I answered that one. Any villain ladies I find actually attractive? Risky boots! Alright, let's see here. Gigapudding asks a relevant question. How would I fix the item bloat issue in DOS 2? Better itemization is really just the answer to that. More precise usage of which items are where and what. There's a whole lot of items. Dozens of items in DOS 2 that are junk. Their artwork, or their flavor, or their fluff, and they never should have been lootable, right? They never should have been something that you can put into your inventory. Most of them are simply because of the way they coded the game. Apparently dinner's ready. So let's try to wrap this up here. But it's just, God, there's so much crap. Hang on, someone asked something that wasn't in the queue. Do I think there's a chance I'll like DOS 2 more than Baldur's Gate 3? Yes, I do absolutely think that's a chance. I don't think it's a high chance, but I think it's a chance. I mean, DOS 2 scored pretty damn well, and it's a current review. It's post-Oblivion line. So I think it's certainly a possibility. Scroll. What's the dumbest decision a person makes in a Castlevania game? The ending of Shadows, the ending of, oh god, Curse of Shadow, no god, what was the name of that damn one? The PS3 one, the reboot. I can't even think of the name of it, but yeah, that ending, that's the answer to that question. Ugh. Not gonna spoil, but Zach Taff says, I know you're not big on who beats who in a fight, but would Captain Rogers have the kit to fight a man like Jack Krauser? Yes. Rogers would probably crush Krauser. I don't care that he's got tentacly stuff. He's just lower tier. There's nothing else for it. Let's see here. Lord of Shadows. Thank you, Czar. That's the one I was talking about. Lord of Shadows wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a Castlevania game, but it wasn't a bad game. Lord of Shadows 2 can go directly to hell. Drunk Killorn says, best JRPG soundtrack. FF6. There's no question there. Yeah, Lords of Shadow, they came up with 3 Lords of Shadow games. There was the reboot, which was decent, and then there was the sequel, which was crapped out, and then there was the frickin' side-scroller game, which nobody even remembers existed. Agreed, Kira White Noise. Lords of Shadow 2 wasn't complete garbage, but it would pretty solidly be a net negative in score to get there. I don't even remember the name of the damn side-scroller one. Sean asks, where does Shantae lie on the Metroidvania spectrum? I'm pretty sure I answered that, but it's definitely has no idea where it wants to sit on the Metroidvania spectrum. And I mean that. Like, the early games, I'd say 1, 2, and 3 were trying too hard to be Castlevanias. 4 finally allowed itself to be a Metroid game, and 5 was also more of a Metroid game. That being said, I think 3 managed to make the combat actually worth a damn. Probably the best combat of the series was in 3. Noctis asks, which currently unmodded or unmoddable game do I think would most benefit from mods? Final Fantasy XIV. Bar none. Just bam. Zach Def says, how would you write a character recovering from mind control? Like, insert spoilers here. Honestly, it would depend. It would depend on the specifics of the situation, the setting, the individuals, the characters. But one way or another, I would have that. This is the one thing that I could answer that definitively. It would matter. It wouldn't be, I've been mind controlled, and then they get over it in an episode, right? It would be something that would essentially always be a part of their character. Even if it's just a minor thing. Even if just like 3, 4, 5 games down the line, they see someone who's being forced to do something, and they just, in the background, you just see them cringe a little bit as just the memories hit them, you know? Just something like that. It would always be a part of their character. Walker says, what's the next theater? Are we switching to rewrites over theaters? I actually answered this, but to reiterate, we are switching completely over to rewrites. The theaters are gone and done and dead forever. Until I take over the world. Then we'll do more theaters. Paranoid Android said, what concept or area of Mass Effect would you create fanfiction for? A day in the life of the elusive man, I think, would be where I would take that. Just kind of a slice of life story, except at an extremely high tier. Yeah, no kidding, Blackfile. J. Palmer says, what's my favorite song from a superhero movie? Honestly, the Avengers theme. Probably from Avengers. Just, yeah, it's a really good song. I'm not going to play it because I'll get copyrighted to hell and back. But it's a good friggin' song. Very iconic. You know the one, ba 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 ba, and now we're copy wrong, but you get it. I answered that one. Sorry. Bear versus gorilla? I did answer that one. We talked about it. We all know the correct answer is bear, and also gorilla. We also talked about sex appeal. We talked about Destiny 2. We talked about a lot of these things. Look, I just want a dating sim where I can date Rex, okay? Is that so much to ask? How's the work on the basement studio coming along? It's completely paused. It has been for weeks. Nothing has been done over there in 3 weeks at this point, so we're just waiting on things. Is it ethical to turn a hamster into a zombie hamster? Yes. Wait. Thank you, Doom Rider, for being part of the show. Always. We're getting really caught up now. We only got 3 pages left. Steeler's Choice. Okay, so let's see here. How would I rank the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies from best to worst? Now that's difficult because I'm not sure. I tend to think of them as 2 movies, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. But if you put a gun to my head, I don't know why y'all keep putting guns to my head. I would probably say. So we'll start with Lord of the Rings. We'll just do. Hang on, let me think about this for a second. So Return of the King at the very top. It's cheating, but I don't care. Return of the King at the very top. Then Fellowship. Then I would probably put Two Towers. Then I would probably put the 3rd Hobbit film. And then the 1st Hobbit film. And then the 2nd Hobbit film at the bottom. I feel like the 2nd Hobbit film was the most meandering and just didn't do the most in general. I still don't think it's a bad film. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. But it's definitely nowhere near the level of quality of the rest of the films. In my opinion. And yeah, I mean, look at Hobbit 2 versus Lord of the Rings 3. It's night and day. Let's see. There's the duopoly question. There's the Genie Games question. We're up to the Shantae games now. Are spiritual successors nostalgia bait? No. Spiritual successors are, I want to keep making this franchise, but I can't because some asshole in a suit is sitting on it. Cough, cough, Castlevania. I'm actually fully in favor of spiritual successors because it's kind of like a loophole to keep making something when you are no longer allowed to make it. Hazardous says, why are you live? Okay, question fixed. I already answered Doom Rider's question. Latario says, what are your thoughts on the Wizards of the Coast D&D company controversy with the draft that taxed companies who use D&D? So Wizards of the Coast are a bunch of scum-sucking jackasses who probably need to stop removing, life and joy from the universe in order to try and make a cheap buck. I don't actually know the specific thing you're even talking about, which I got nothing else to add to that, to be completely honest with you. The fact that there is yet another thing that Wizards of the Coast is doing, which is terrible, is just a Tuesday at this point. And that's my thoughts on it in a nutshell. They're a crappy company, and we need to stop giving them money. I mean, you saw what they were doing with Magic the Gathering earlier this year, right? Ugh. Killer Bean says, any games that were ruined for me when they upgraded or made a sequel to the game. For example, Stronghold to Stronghold Crusader, and then Stronghold 2 came out, and that ruined the game for you. I suppose there's the obvious answer, Mass Effect 3, but actually, no. Mass Effect 3 did not ruin 1 or 2 for me, as I've said many times, and that stands up in review. Games that are ruined for me when they made a sequel to it. No, I'm actually going to answer a very firm no, because I can think of several sequels which are arguably worse and drag the previous game through the mud, but I kind of don't care because I still like Chrono Trigger, to use a direct example. So in your example, I would still enjoy Stronghold, so I'm with that, right? Venture says, do I think it was wrong of them to do to Arthas what they did to him in Shadowlands? Yes, even though it's actually really similar to what I would have done to him, the way they did it was kind of terrible. I mean, WoW Shadowlands doesn't matter to anything. So if we just kind of... And it's gone! It doesn't affect anything. Sean says, with the ports of RDR having been announced, should the run get funded, what will the platform I play it on change? Probably. I think I own RDR1. Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. So I might just play that version. It depends. I am anticipating a lazy, crappy port with the remasters, so I don't anticipate going ahead and dropping money for it. If they're actually good remasters, I'll consider it, but they're not on the PC, which is what I wanted to begin with, so that sucks. Lataria says, has there been a video game character that you really liked and then you turned on them because of something they later said? Yes, all the time. That's a really common thing. Thank you, ISE. But I'll give you a specific example. In DOS 2, there's this one NPC who's like, oh my gosh, like, I feel a connection with you, and you're my friend. Here, if you ever get out of here, work with this and leave a letter. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got your back. And then I leave town and go to the act, and spoilers, she was just doing a con. And I was so pissed about that every time I've replayed DOS 2, I have murdered her in the face. Umbral Magnus says, what is your plan for Baldur's Gate 3? Are you doing an original character or custom? I am, of course, going to do a custom character. Haven't decided on the Dark Urges yet. Dark Day says, do you miss 7 out of 10 games? What I mean is, I remember as a kid going to the local video game store, renting a game for the weekend, beating it, enjoying it, and never playing it again. No. However, I do enjoy 7 out of 10 games rather easily. In fact, a lot of games that score pretty well, like in the 80-ish range, is what that would probably be in our system, are perfectly good games that I enjoy perfectly well, and then I never go back to them. So I suppose I don't miss that because I get that. I already have that in my life. Sputnik Lock says, will Baldur's Gate have difficulty by increasing hit points? Yes, I've actually looked up the difficulty of Baldur's Gate 3. It has good and bad difficulty. We'll talk about them when we get there. Zacktaf says, with Resident Evil characters, I wonder who you'll like besides Leon and Wesker. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine are iconic. I have no idea. Of course. Venter says, if you could be any creature type in D&D, what would you pick? Obviously, I'd be a deity. But I know that's not what you mean. You mean a creature type. So I can't even pick a template like a lich. So if I have to pick a specific creature to be from D&D, I would probably pick something extraordinarily, insanely powerful. Like one of the elemental or prismatic dragons, you know, the neutral ones, which are epic level. Because I would want to be an epic level dragon. If I need to explain why I would want to be an epic level dragon, then I've got nothing else. Anyways, I gotta go get dinner. Thank you all for joining me. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be streaming Baldur's Gate 3. I hope you like the new setup, such as it is. I know the audio's better, so that's cool. I might even actually have my freaking uniform on. That'll be great. I'll see you guys.